Hi, my name is Katherine Williams. I'm a graduate student at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm going to be presenting a study exploring differences in children's early temporal cognition, in particular cross-linguistic differences in the acquisition of time words like yesterday and tomorrow. So in many cases of word learning, comprehension precedes production, but time words are acquired slowly, and children actually start producing these words several years before they have adult-like comprehension. So between the ages of 2 and 3, children start to produce words like before and after and yesterday and tomorrow, but they have difficulty using them in an adult-like way until at least age 5. So for example, when asked a question about a duration, children might respond with words like minute or hour, but still use them inaccurately. So other aspects of temporal reasoning, like clock reading and acquiring the exact meanings for time words, develop more slowly, and some aren't adult-like until children are between the ages of 8 and 10 years old. So why is there this unusually long gap between children's production and comprehension of temporal language? There are several challenges that kids might face that would make acquiring an adult-like understanding of these words difficult. So first, formal definitions are generally not taught until grade school, so precise meanings and boundaries of duration words aren't explicitly marked in conversation, so they can only be precisely indicated with measuring devices like clocks, and precise meanings require some numerical knowledge that can take children years to master. Exact meanings can also be ambiguous, so phrases like just a minute and wait a minute rarely reflect a precise duration of time. And time words like yesterday and tomorrow could be especially challenging because they don't have fixed meanings, so their reference depends on the context in which they are said. Tuesday's tomorrow is different from Wednesday's tomorrow. So not only do children need to gain an understanding that yesterday is in the past and tomorrow is in the future, but to really have the precise meanings for these words, children need to understand their relative distance from the present. So they need to understand that tomorrow is exactly one day in the future from today. There is evidence that children acquire some aspects of time word meanings before others. So a study from 2015 examined 2 types of knowledge relevant for the precise meanings of duration words. And what the study found was that by age 5, children do know the rank ordering of duration words from smallest to largest. But before age 7, children struggled to combine their knowledge about duration words with their knowledge about number words, suggesting that they don't associate these words with approximate durations until the age of 7. So, for example, until age 7, children struggled with demonstrating their knowledge that 2 hours is greater than 3 minutes. In another study in 2017, Tillman and colleagues looked at 3 types of knowledge relevant for deictic time words like yesterday and tomorrow. So they used a timeline task like this one here, which extended from the past when you were a baby to the future when you're a grown-up, and the black vertical line in the middle represents the present. In this study, what they found was that children first learned the relative ordering and past future status of these words, and they learned both these pieces of information between the ages of 4 and 6. So by age 6, children understand the relative ordering of these words, and they understand that yesterday is in the past and tomorrow is in the future. But knowledge of their relative distance from the present, which we call temporal remoteness, does not emerge before age 7. So children younger than 7 did not understand that the day before yesterday refers to a time farther in the past than yesterday, or that last week refers to a time even farther in the past. So at least for English-speaking children, there is evidence that children acquire some aspects of meaning before others, and the aspects of meaning that are acquired early, like relative ordering and past future status, seem to be linked to the linguistic cues that are available to children. So at least in English, past future status can be inferred from grammatical tense. I danced yesterday indicates that yesterday is a time in the past. Information about temporal remoteness, on the other hand, cannot be inferred from tense cues, at least in English. So if children are using the linguistic context to infer meaning, then this could explain why past future status emerges earlier than knowledge of temporal remoteness. Also, knowledge of the relative ordering of terms could be inferred from contrastive uses and order of mention, but again, temporal remoteness cannot. So linguistic cues seem like they could be important for children's acquisition of time words, but this hypothesis hasn't been directly tested. One way to directly test this would be to compare speakers of different languages. And this study is the first to investigate the acquisition of time words like yesterday and tomorrow in both German and English speakers. So the similarities between English and German create an opportunity for a natural experiment to investigate the influence of linguistic cues on the acquisition of temporal language. Because in both languages, grammatical tense provides a linguistic cue to the past-future status of time words. Also, there's a single term that can be used to refer to one day in the future or one day in the past. I'm going to refer to these as proximal terms because they are close to the present. German has additional compound words that refer to a time 2 days in the future or 2 days in the past. Meanwhile, English speakers must use an entire phrase to refer to these time periods. And I'm going to refer to these as distal terms because they are farther from the present. So the important point here is that the proximal terms are available in both English and German, while the distal terms are available only in German. So German does have this larger set of time words. So what we wanted to know in this study is whether these different sets of time words might lead to differences in children's acquisition of these words. So if having more time words is better, then German-speaking children might learn the meanings of these words earlier than English-speaking children. So we had a large sample of English-speaking and German-speaking for 5 and 6-year-olds, and this data was collected in Austria and in the United States. So first, to get a very general idea of children's knowledge, we just asked them to name the days of the week in order, and this was along with several other verbal questions that are not reported here. But what we found was that more than twice as many English speakers correctly recited the days of the week compared to German speakers, and English speakers did show an advantage at each age. We had a separate calendar task, and this task was used to assess children's knowledge of the past-future status of the words separate from their knowledge of the terms distance from the present, so the temporal remoteness piece. Here, in this task, a sticker was placed in the middle square to represent today, and children were asked to place stickers for each item. So first, just to assess knowledge of past-future status, we asked if children placed the sticker to the right or to the left of today. So for tomorrow, a correct placement is any square to the right of the orange sticker, so there are 3 possible correct responses. German and English speakers in this study were equally likely to have knowledge of the past-future status for both the proximal words that appear in both languages and the distal words that appear only in German. So in the graph on the left, we collapsed across language groups. On the y-axis, you can see the proportion of children who correctly placed items in the past or the future, and children are split into 3 age groups along the x-axis. Also, I want to note that performance improved with age, so older children in both language groups outperformed younger children. And this finding that knowledge of past-future status did not vary between language groups or across terms is consistent with the hypothesis that children may use grammatical tense to learn this aspect of time word meaning. Next, to look at whether children had precise meanings for these words, we asked if they placed the sticker in the correct box. So to put the sticker in the correct box, children have to understand both the past-future status of the term and its distance from today. So they have to understand that tomorrow is exactly 1 day in the future from today. So here there's only one possible correct response for tomorrow. In general, German speakers outperformed English speakers on both the proximal terms and the distal terms, but this difference is most pronounced at age 4. So at age 5, German speakers show an advantage for distal terms, but not proximal terms. And by age 6, we see similar performance across language groups for both proximal and distal terms. So it seems like having more time words might be better. And it doesn't seem to be the case that German speakers have more time knowledge in general because they were less likely than English speakers to recite the days of the week in order. Also, our findings of no difference in children's knowledge of the past-future status of the words is consistent with the hypothesis that linguistic cues are important because as far as we know, there's no difference in how past-future status is expressed in German or English. Also, if it is simpler to learn the meaning of a word than a complex phrase, German speakers should show an advantage for the distal terms. And if having access to more tightly spaced distal terms helps constrain children's meanings for the proximal terms, then German speakers should show an advantage for the proximal terms as well. And we see evidence for both of these hypotheses, at least at age 4. So these results are consistent with the hypothesis that having access to more time words is better. One other possibility is that these differences in English and German speakers speaking children's acquisition of the precise meanings for these words could be related to the difference in the proximity of their closest alternatives. So for example, in English, the closest temporal alternative to yesterday that doesn't require an entire phrase to specify is last week, which is approximately 6 times farther away from yesterday than the day before yesterday is. So maybe having this closer alternative word helps German speakers restrict the scope of yesterday at an age when English speakers are still overextending this word to inaccurately refer to more distant times in the past. Now, this explanation is similar to patterns of findings in other domains, such as color, in which meanings are initially overextended and only begin to narrow as alternative terms and words are acquired within that domain. So we're going to continue this work by turning to other languages. So languages aside from German and English vary widely in the number of time words they have and how different aspects of meanings are expressed. So for example, Urdu time words specify a term's distance from the present, so their temporal remoteness, but not their past future status. And there's no morphological tense system in Mandarin Chinese. So if tense is an important cue for learning the past future status of these words, we might predict earlier acquisition of these words in English and German speaking children compared to Mandarin speaking children. I want to thank you for coming to this talk, and a big thank you to my graduate advisor, Dr. Katherine Tillman, and also our collaborators at the University of Vienna who made this study possible.